Hey folks, this is Kalani. Buffs, and more buffs are coming our way in patch 9.0.5. The PTR realms were just updated with another build, and this time some classes are receiving huge buffs, and a lot of legendary effects across the board are being bumped up a few notches as well. We knew more class tuning, specifically legendary tuning, was going to land on the PTR sometime soon, but this was maybe a bit faster than I was expecting. Let's dig through all of the data mining to see which classes are getting the buffs, who the unlucky few are that will see some nerfs, and where all of our legendary effects will end up with these upcoming changes. Let's kick things off with the class changes. Demon Hunters will see a very tasty buff to one of their talents, Unbound Chaos. This used to be a monster of a talent until it was nerfed into oblivion, and it looks like the dev team might want to try and bring it back a bit. Activating Immolation Aura increases the damage your next Fel Rush by 500%, up from 300%, so almost fully doubling the potential of this talent. Sadly, I don't think even that is enough to push this talent into a good spot as it is right now though. For the Resto Druids, Wild Growth healing has been increased by 7% overall. That should help Resto Druids keep up when healing multiple targets and will go very well with the previous 12% buff to Rejuvenation. Mistweavers are going to see some more love in the mana department. Renewing Mist will see its mana cost reduced from 2.1% of your base mana down to 1.8% of your base mana. That goes very well with the Vivify change. The same deal, mana cost was reduced to 3.8% mana down from 4.1%. Every little helps when you're as mana hungry as a Mistweaver monk. Holy Priests are actually getting some love this time around as well. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. Usually it's the Disciplined Priests in the spotlight for whatever reason, but for Holy Priests, Divine Hymn has been reworked very slightly. Instead of providing a 10% increased healing buff for 8 seconds to everyone who is healed by Divine Hymn, it will now increase all targets healing taken by 4% for 15 seconds, and this effect will stack with every pulse of healing from Divine Hymn. With 5 total pulses or waves of healing, this means the buff from a fully channeled Divine Hymn will total a 20% increased healing taken buff across your entire raid or group for 15 seconds after Divine Hymn ends. So not only is the overall healing buff being doubled, but its duration is also being more or less doubled too. That's a bit of a crazy buff to Holy Priest's main healing cooldown and provides a much needed power boost to Holy's overall kit. Now, Disciplined Priests are still making it into these class changes lists, and not for great reasons, I'm afraid. You may have heard that Spirit Shell was being nerfed down to 80% effectiveness, which will be a fairly large nerf by itself, but now the maximum shield will be based off of the caster's spell power instead of the caster's maximum health. It's hard to pin down exactly how big of a change this is going to be without exact numbers, but from what I've heard in the priest community, this could end up being a massive nerf to Spirit Shell. Shields have always been hard to balance, so it doesn't surprise me to see even more changes to Spirit Shell. This might be the spell to keep an eye on and watch throughout the PTR cycle because it could change so much more, depending on whether the dev team ever ends up happy with its implementation. Shamans might be the most excited for this week's round of changes though. Both Elemental and Enhancement will see some buffs. Chain Lightning damage has been increased by 35%, Lightning Shield damage has been increased by 415%, Lava Burst for Resto Shaman has been nerfed by 10%, for Ellie Shaman specifically, Earth Shock damage has been increased by 30%, Earthquake damage has been increased by 70%, Lava Beam damage has been increased by 35%, and Lava Burst damage was reduced by 10%. So some big buffs in there for a few abilities and a slight knockdown on Lava Burst. Now for Enhancement, Lava Lash damage was increased by 40% and the Stormkeeper talent will now increase Chain Lightning's damage by 300% instead of 2 Lightning Bolts for 150% each. Damage increases might not be what some players are looking for in terms of gameplay adjustments and making the spec feel better to play, but it's definitely better than nothing, and some of these buffs were pretty big. And then to round out these class changes, we also have Warlocks. Affliction Warlocks will be very happy to hear that the previous Malefic Rapture nerfs have been reverted, so you don't have to worry about falling off the DPS meters hard in patch 9.0.5, at least not yet. That's it for the class changes, but this build also introduces a lot of changes to legendary effects. Like, a lot. Seriously. Pretty much all of these changes are going to be buffs too, and in some cases the buffs are kind of crazy, so keep an eye out for some of your lesser used legendary effects. They might just end up on top in patch 9.0.5. There are a lot of legendary buffs in general, so I'm going to get through these quickly. I'll leave the full change on screen for you, but I'm going to skim through for the most part. For the Death Knight's Crimson Rune Weapon, Gorefiend's Domination, Vampiric Aura, Reanimated Shambler, and Pheromones have all been buffed. Some of these effects have been given entirely new powers, while others have just been buffed to be better than they were before. For the Demon Hunters, Burning Wound has seen a massive buff from 5% attack power up to 100% attack power for the damage over time effect, and the debuff will increase the damage taken from your Immolation Aura by 100% up from 50%. That's going to be very interesting for multi-dotting as a Demon Hunter. And then Dark Glare Boon has been buffed too. The proc chance has been doubled for both Vengeance and Havoc to give their Eye-Beam or Fell Devastation a 40% chance to not trigger their cooldown and refund Fury. Eye-Beam spam might just become a thing again. For the Druids, Cat Eye Curio, Frenzy Band, and Verdant Infusion have all been buffed. All of these are just straight buffs to what the Legendary already did. Maybe they'll be more worth picking up now. Hunters have a very long list of LEGO buffs here. Dire Command, Flamewalker's Cobra Sting, Quapla Eridan War Order, Rylax Stalker's Piercing Fangs, Eagle Talon's True Focus, and Surging Shots have all been buffed. A few of these had additional functionality added in, and then the rest are just straight up power buffs. Some of them are pretty big too, so hopefully the Hunters will have a few more options in 9.0.5. Mages have quite a few buffs in here as well. Arcane Harmony, Molten Skyfall, Sun King's Blessing, Cold Front, Freezing Winds, Disciplinary Command, and Expanded Potential are all getting buffs. All of these seem to be straightforward buffs to increase the potency of the legendary, with the last one getting a proc rate increase. These changes overall seem less crazy, but I'm sure every little helps when it comes to underplayed legendary effects. Moving on to the monks, Mighty Paw, Xiaohao's Might, Clouded Focus, and Zuen's Battle Gear have all been buffed. There's some big buffs in there, and it might look like Zuen's Battle Gear has changed a lot. It actually looks like the wording has just been rearranged and a buff has been thrown in on top. For the Paladins, Inflorescence of the Sunwell, Shadowbreaker, Dawn of the Sun, Vanguard's Momentum, and Of Dusk and Dawn have all been buffed, and Ardent Protector's Sanctum has been reworked. Those buffs are going to be nice for sure, but a reworked legendary is always exciting. It's kind of like getting an entirely new legendary effect, especially if the old one wasn't really used all too often. Priests only have a handful of changes this time. Flash Concentration, Painbreaker Psalm, and Shadowflame Prism have all been buffed. The Flash Concentration buff could end up being incredible, and some Shadow Priest buffs are always nice to see. Rogues will see buffs to Doomblade, Duskwalker's Patch, Greenskin's Wickers, Guile Charm, The Rotten, Deadly Shadows, and Tiny Toxic Blade. Quite a list there, with a few nice buffs in to say the least. It definitely feels like the dev team wants to get some of these other legendaries into the spotlight at least a little bit, so I'm excited to see what other LEGO buffs lie in store. Shamans might be one of the only classes to get a LEGO nerf this time. Echoes of Great Sundering has been taken down just a tad. This might coincide with some of the other Shaman buffs though, and might just play out as an even deal. And then Legacy of the Frost Witch and Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem have both been buffed. I'm happy to see that for the vast majority of these legendary changes, the dev team are buffing up the underperforming legendaries rather than nerfing the best ones. Shamans might be the sole exception here though. For the Warlocks, Malefic Wrath, Wrath of Consumption, Bale Spider's Burning Core, Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling, Implosive Potential, and Madness of the Azakia have all been buffed. While it's nice to see some lock LEGO buffs, because Warlock legendary choices are kinda boring right now, these buffs are definitely on the lighter side of things with these changes, it feels like. I'll keep my fingers crossed that some bigger buffs come through in the future of PTR. And last but by no means least, the Warriors. What a list we have here. Battle Lord, Enduring Blow, Exploiter, Cadence of Fuedi, Reckless Defense, Will of the Berserker, Reprisal, Unbreakable Will, and Seismic Reverberation have all been buffed. What is that? Like all of the warriors available legendaries? Insane. This is also the first real pass for legendary balance tuning in the live game, and to see this many legendaries on this list is kind of crazy. At least the dev team realizes there's some significant discrepancies between the power levels of various legendaries, and they're working towards more viable options. I'm actually very excited for patch 9.05 to reach the live servers, because we usually have to wait for the big patches to come through for these kinds of updates, but it looks like the dev team wants to split up the workload, push through some balance tuning in a smaller patch with some smaller pieces of content, and then smash it out of the park with an awesome 9.1 later on down the road. With BlizzConline on our doorstep, we won't have to wait much longer to find out what lies in store for us, but that's it for this video. Are there any buffs in here that surprise you? Are there any classes you think that still need a lot of help, or any legendary effects that absolutely need some big buffs? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to pop by our live stream sometime over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We always love chatting with you wonderful folks, and watching the stream and come to say hi is one of the best ways you can support the channel right now. And if you ever wanted to be included in the long list of names at the end of every video, a subscription on Twitch is the easiest way to make that happen. You get a free sub to any Twitch channel if you have Amazon Prime too, so be sure to take advantage of that. A big thank you to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch already, and to our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, well, now you know how. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.